Well, I think we're going to do story time again today. I think I'm going to do two of them. They're both going to be tales from the trip. Unfortunately, I do not have the sweet animation that Comedy Central has. The first one is going to be a mushroom trip from my teen years, maybe early 20s. I remember it was the time around that my brother got married in Thailand because my dad and my stepmom were gone. And I had a buddy who I've known since third grade, and he had come back from Washington, and he had a 5 gallon bucket completely full of mushrooms. And I was like, "Sweet, dude, let's have some fun." And he's like, "No, no, these are for business, not for pleasure." Okay, fair enough. A couple of weeks went by though. He calls me up. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just hanging out at my house. Parents are gone. Got the place to myself. Is it cool if me and a buddy come over?" "Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm bored. Let's hang out." Um, Now, I love this friend to death. I do, but every time we hung out, he seemed to have a different companion hanging out with him, and they were always just kind of a little bit on the shady side. But the one he brought over this night, he was actually a pretty cool dude. Um, and he brought over the 5 gallon bucket, and I was like, "Oh yeah, let's do some mushies." And he opens it up, and they're all gone. But in the bottom, there is like powdery looking stuff, and it's basically a shitload of spores. And so we proceeded to take some spoons and just started eating some spoonfuls. And the other way I can think of how to pinpoint around what time this was is that Guitar Hero 2 was all the rage at this time. It was still all the rage. And that's what we started doing. We started playing Guitar Hero 2. And I remember we got stuck on some song on Expert, and we were just hard stuck there. And we were just like, "Dude, we're not going to be able to beat it. We're not going to be able to beat it." And then we're sitting there and we get to playing. I can't remember which one of us was playing at the time, but all of a sudden it's like, "Dude, is it going like really slow?" Dude, it is going really, really slow. And then we beat the song all of a sudden like it was super easy. Okay? Once we started playing a couple more songs, and then I definitely knew they were kicking in because I started getting a little tickle in the back, or on the bottom of my spine, and then I started getting the giggles. Now, for some reason, I decided that this was a great time to go outside. And anyone that's done any kind of psychedelics or stuff like that knows that this is bad because we didn't have a trip sitter, and I had escaped the outdoors on my own. I want to say it was probably 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I think it was October, thereabouts. I remember getting outside. It was chilly. There was a slight breeze in the air, and I had to pee so bad. And I decided apparently for this pee that not only was I going to undo my pants, but I was going to do the drop the pants to the ankles along with the briefs as well. Okay? And I got to say, this was absolutely the most glorious piss I've ever taken. It just felt like heaven the entire time with a light, cool breeze kissing my butt cheeks, in the wind there, just hanging out. And then, I finish, and I'm still just standing there in my bliss. And I start looking up at the sky, and I see the moon there. And then all of a sudden, this cloud cover kind of starts moving in slowly across the moon. It was a full moon, it was bright out. And then all of a sudden, these clouds kind of started forming around the moon, and it made like this dragon's head, and the moon was his eye, okay? And it was like super not detailed, and it just slowly became way more detailed, increasing detail, by the second. And then all of a sudden, like his face exploded, and there was like these massive whiskers that were all just waving and wafting in the wind. And I'm just standing there like, "Oh, oh." And all of a sudden, he's sitting there and like he starts doing stuff. Like, and at this point, I'm convinced he's some kind of god, okay? But he had way other more important business than whatever was going on here. Like, he wasn't even really looking this direction. And I mean, from what I could see, what he was doing, it looks like he was like spinning up galaxies, you know, making them swirly ones, and then whew, and then he'd push them away. Or, you know, then all of a sudden, like, something would light up over here, and he'd sit there and touch it, you know, spin up another one, push it away. And as I sat there watching him, all of a sudden, he definitely noticed me. Like, he turned and, like, he looked right at me, and then he came in real close. And freaking, I mean, his eye was massive. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I was just it was just pure black with like a little white thing of light around me. Like I was just in a spotlight, and he was just checking me out. You know, like, how the hell can you see me? What are you doing? And then he pulled out real quick back to how far away he was. And then he pushed his arms forward like this. And then he split them, and it was no easy feat for him to do it. It looked like he was struggling, but as he did it, it split the normal sky open, and like, I would say like the stars and like the universe started falling over the edges of his arms like a waterfall, and it started just turning into like colorful light, and it all started going right into my eyeballs, being funneled right into my pupils. And it was a very intense experience. I felt like my brain was just being overloaded with knowledge. And I just remember it got so insanely bright to the point it was like a when you get flashed with a camera in a dark room and it blinds you. Okay, except it dropped me to my knees, and I was blinded for like a good 30 seconds, maybe a minute. I could not see at all. It was just pitch black. My eyes hurt. And then as I slowly started coming to, and like my vision started coming back, it was real dark. But all of a sudden I started seeing like these tiny, tiny little green glowing things. Okay, and then they started moving. And then as my vision came back more, I realized that everything that was alive was covered in these green things. Like the tree, you could see through the ground, and you could see all like thousands, hundreds of millions of thousands. Okay, a Google, a mole of these things. You chemistry nerds, a mole. And you could see them going up the roots and then flowing up through the tree, and then it would branch out, and you could see it moving out toward the tips of the top of the tree. Okay, all the grasses were doing it. You know, the animals had it, you know, and it was all swirling around them. I looked down at my arms, they were doing it. You know, it looked like I was covered in like these tiny little green bugs, like the things from James and the Giant Peach, but they were smaller than ants. Okay, and I was like, but yeah, and then everything dead, you didn't have them, like the shed, the rocks, like they didn't have any of that going on. But yeah, everything alive had that going on, and that lasted probably, I don't know, probably for like a good 3 minutes or so. It didn't last very long, it seemed like. And then I realized, you know, I'm laying there in the dirt with my pants and my underwear around my ankles still, dragging my dick in the dirt. That was my first real, what do I want to say? Experience where there's something more out there, where there's more to this world than you think there is. Okay, so that was the first one.